How's it going? And welcome back to Press Coverage. This week we'll be covering the UFC for our first time. We expect to put out some more videos covering different sports throughout the year, so make sure to check back in. If you're just coming for NFL coverage, maybe pop back in and see if you're an NBA fan, UFC fan. Maybe we'll move on, do some more videos, but we expect to cover whatever we're interested in. So keep a lookout. We should be doing future UFC events as well, but this weekend we've got UFC 324. It's a pretty big card, historic card, because the first non-pay-per-view card, they moved out of that model. They're onto Paramount Plus, so should be interesting to see what the production is like, maybe what changes. All of you longtime UFC fans, you've seen the different eras, the different production values, what angles we're looking at, and I'm interested to see, as a UFC fan, like, what are they going to change? What's it going to look like? We've seen a lot of the promo material has changed, a lot of that press work, and the way that looks, the way they set up and light the guys, and how silly or corny it is. That's not gone through different eras. People are already starting to clown a little bit on some of the shoots. They went on to the Golden Globes and had UFC fighters walk on the stage in Hollywood for some reason. Who knows why? It looks pretty ridiculous, but should be interested to see how this transition goes. But yeah, enough of that. Let's just talk about the fights. Should be a great card. They really set us up. A little bit of a bummer since we lost one of the major fights going into this event. But yeah, so we should be going through this from the bottom up. We're going to go from the early prelims up to the prelims onto the main event. As the fights goes on, we're going to do a little bit more analysis of the fights on the earlier end. Some of these guys, I doubt you have the same interest or want to hear the same amount on, like Ricky Turcios, as you do on the title fights. So we're just going to give our quick picks, maybe some thoughts, and as we get up to the main event, we'll dig in. We'll really spend some time on these fights, the background, why we think, who's going to win, what the plans are going in. So, yeah.
And in the first match, we have Ty Miller going off against Adam Fugit. Adam Fugit, 3 of his last 4 losses have been TKOs. So look for Ty Miller to kind of capitalize on that. He looked pretty good in this Dana White Contender Series match. And this is a young kid. He's hungry. And at the end of the day, I think he just has the power to take out Adam Fugit. Fugit's in a spot in his career where he's 37 on the back end of his career. And I just don't think he has enough to take out Ty Miller at this time.
Yeah. And, you pointed out young, hungry kid, and I think we've seen the pattern with UFC. When they have a young and hungry guy, they serve somebody up on a platter. They say, hey, we got this 37, 36, whatever Fugit is. We've got this older guy who's on a losing streak. Let's go ahead and throw him to the wolves here. Let's see how much we really have in this young buck. So I think this is a case of, just serving a guy up, hoping the young, hungry kid just devours him, build up some love from the fan base, and then we can build him toward some more interesting fights. So yeah, I don't think there's a lot to look out for here unless you like to look for those up and comers. So yeah, expect a quick loss from Fugit, quick win from Miller. And yeah, next up we have Turcios versus Smotherman. I'm personally taking Turcios here. Neither of them have looked amazing in the UFC. Turcios has had a couple losses in the last few years, couple wins. He's looked all right. I just believe that Turcios has a better range, is more complete fighter, and I also think that Smotherman, when he's come out there, while he has some talent, I think that he's let off the gas pedal. He's done a few things that for a younger fighter are a red flag to me. He doesn't look like he's making the right decisions at the right moments. He doesn't look like he's ready for the spotlight at times. And Turcios, for all of my misgivings about him, I don't believe he's ever going to become a fighter to look out for. I don't think he's going to be, shooting up the ranks anytime soon. I think Turcios, when I watch him fight, he does seem like a professional to me. And so at the end of the day, I think that's why I'm picking Turcios, despite him not necessarily being a world beater.
Smotherman, young guy, I think he's had 3 UFC fights now. With these young guys, you never know when they're going to take that leap, when they're going to go over that mountain. But at the end of the day, I think Ricky Turcios, he's a former Ultimate Fighter champion when he beat Brady Highstand in the championship. This is a guy who kind of takes advantage with his cardio. There will be a point midway through the fight where he just takes over with volume. So for you watching at home, do you value someone who's kind of big on cardio, or do you value someone who has maybe the physical talent, the mental talent to get it done? But I think for me, I just have to go with what I know and what I've seen out of these guys so far. And Tercios, he has a lot of volume. Sometimes it's not the best volume, but it's volume. And I think in the UFC, the biggest thing you can have is cardio. And I think he just takes over and wins by decision. I'll take him by decision.
Yeah. And then next up, we're moving up a couple weight classes. We've got Hokit versus Freeman. Not young guys, but newer to the UFC. Mm-hmm. I don't think either of these guys have more than like 10 professional fights. I'm personally leading Freeman, although I don't have strong feelings on this one. Both guys look like they could be something in the future. I haven't watched enough of them to have strong opinions. I believe that Freeman looked pretty decent in his first outing. I don't know if you have thoughts on that.
Yeah, I took Freeman with the upset win in his last match. Mm-hmm. He's got power. He has enough durability, enough cardio for that division to kind of get by. But I think in this match, he's going to be outmatched technically against Hokit. So I think Hokit wins by decision, maybe finish. But I think this is one of the rare times where in that division we might see a decision win.
And then next up, the last fight of the early prelims, we have Perez versus Johnson. I don't know if you want to lead us off here.
Yeah, Charles Johnson versus Alex Perez. This is a guy in their last 6 fights where one is 1-5 and the other's 5-1. Granted, the strength of schedule isn't the same, but you can kind of see which way these guys' careers are going. They're both kind of the same age. But there is something to be said about strength of schedule, and so you take that with a grain of salt. Alex Perez, he's a guy who has shown a lot of promise in the UFC. Mm-hmm. Now he's kind of towards the later stage in his career. So do you think he can kind of go back to his roots and capitalize on that? But Johnson's looked good even with the strength of schedule. He's getting finishes, he's getting TKOs, he's getting decision wins. In this match with these two guys, I think I'm leaning Johnson, but it wouldn't shock me at all if Perez wins. So I'm kind of just going to stay off this one and just pop back, eat some popcorn, and just enjoy the fight.
Yeah, I'm also going to take Johnson. If I was, forced to pick one of these guys, that's who I'd go with. As you said, who you're fighting matters a lot. And as we covered earlier in this video, who you're, kind of forced to take. In these early days, you don't have as much pull with the UFC. You can't ask for certain guys. You just got to take what you're given. And sometimes what you're given is, not an easy fight. So you always have to take earlier in the events. There's these guys that, don't have a lot of pull. You got to let them have a little leeway with some of their wins and losses, and they could jump up at any point. They could go on a run because it finally clicked for them. But with any sport, the mental game matters. I wouldn't say more than the technical aspects, but almost just as much. And I think that's especially true for fighting. I think that, belief in yourself and ability to draw from your personal well, be able to go back to what you've learned, and not freeze up in moments, not panic, and understand, knowing who you are as a fighter, I think is really important. And I think it really messes with you when you're down a couple fights in a row, when you think you're the guy and all of a sudden you're looking at potentially getting cut. I think that really affects fighters. And so I think these records matter. I think that, it might not be the best signaling of how good a fighter is, but I think it will affect the outcome of their upcoming fights more than maybe gets talked about. So that's why I'm going Johnson. I think Johnson's probably riding a high right now. He's starting to believe in himself more again. And I just don't really see a way that Perez completely outmatches Johnson. He could take it, but that's why I'm leaning towards Johnson. And that covers the end of the early prelims. Next up, we have the prelims. We start off the prelims with Michael Johnson versus Hernandez, which pretty interesting fight, pretty good fight to start off a prelim event. Hopefully the Paramount Plus cards can continue to have this type of quality on the lower end. Yeah.
Alexander the Great Hernandez, he's burned me a few times, honestly.
Yeah.
He's someone where I subconsciously just always believed in him, always thought he was going to be great. And then at the end of the day, it never happens. So I'm kind of learning my lesson with this one. But he's facing a guy in Michael Johnson who is also at the end of his career, getting up there in age. This is a guy who was near the top of the division for so long, and now he's kind of just become that gatekeeper, I guess.
Definitely. Yeah, I think Hernandez, he's one of those guys that his fights are memorable, and I think that's important for the UFC when you're talking about these big cards and who they choose to put on them. I think that's why you're seeing a guy like Hernandez here starting off the prelims, because while he may not be the best fighter on offer, he is typically interesting. He keeps fans engaged. Guys who are watching either love him or hate him. And like you said, I'm not sure he's really going anywhere long term because he's pretty up and down. And great bit of analysis here. I'm like any fan, sometimes the important stuff, the stuff that really matters, gets pushed back here, and just the look of a guy upsets me. And Hernandez is one of those guys where something about the way he holds his diaphragm, the way he talks about himself, the way he walks around, I don't like him. I don't like him, but I think he's going to take this fight. I think Johnson's way past his prime. He's been a gatekeeper for a bit. I think he's about to, lose the keys to that gate. I think he's about to get, walked out to the dog yard. And I don't know. I think he scraps at this point. I don't think he has a whole lot left. I think Hernandez is going to have enough to probably knock him out in this one.
He did look pretty good in his last match,
yeah,
but I think Hernandez just has too much power. This is a guy who has great wrestling, and so I think he'll, in a perfect world, he'll take advantage of his wrestling, but this is a guy who you worry about his fight IQ, so maybe he just brawls and gasses out.
Yeah.
So I'd look at the odds of this one, depending on where you're at with it, but I'm just going to play it safe and go with Alexander Hernandez in this one.
I'm with you. And next up, we have Krylov versus Bukauskas. Thank you. And I think here we have a couple guys that are pretty solid. We're starting to get into real, high-end fighters. Bukauskas has looked pretty good recently. Krylov has struggled a bit. He used to be one of the, top shelf guys in the division. And I think he's maybe lost that, but he hasn't dipped into that gatekeeper realm yet. He still believes in himself. I think the UFC still wants to give him fights where he can prove he's still at that high level. Getting up there in age a little bit, but I think Krylov is going to be able to take it. I enjoy him a lot. The fights he's lost and the fights he's won recently have been pretty high level. He's had to fight, both of the heavyweight Sergeys, Spivak, and Pavlovich. And I believe he split those. I think he beat Spivak and lost to Pavlovich, if I'm correct. And yeah, I think the guys that he's fighting are all really good. And he's not the type of fighter that's just going to steamroll a division, but he is the type of fighter that's going to stay in it. And when you're looking at a guy like this who does have that talent and can, step into the ring with anybody and go toe-to-toe, when they're coming off of a couple losses, I think that he's already built up the belief. He already knows who he is, and he's pissed. I think he's going to be upset at his recent losses, and he's going to be looking to take it out on a guy who maybe is an up-and-comer in a division and isn't quite at the same level, maybe not a household name yet. But I think that Krylov is going to see that as a bit of disrespect, that people even think that he should be in the ring with this guy at this point in his career. And so I think Krylov's going to come out and look sharp, look focused, and he's going to take out Bukauskas.
This is a classic matchup of technique versus athleticism.
Mm-hmm.
So Krylov, he's a more technical striker. He's got better ground game. But Bukauskas is a lot more athletic at this point in their careers. He's going to come in amazing shape. This guy's a great athlete, and he throws with a lot of power and kicks with a lot of power. And I think he will be able to use that to his advantage this week. I think he'll use his athleticism to his edge, and I think he'll win a decision on the feet.
Yeah, I'm with you. And next up, we have Gautier versus Pulaev. Personally, I haven't watched a lot of Pulaev, but I did watch Gautier's last match, and looked pretty dang good. I think the guy who was fighting, I don't know, they probably set him up for that really nice, clip that they could use to promote his future fights. I think that's probably why he's up so high on these prelims, is that they want to sell him. And you can see why. You watch one of his fights and you understand why they want to push a guy like this, because the fan base sometimes differs between how technical you want fights to be versus how exciting you want them to be. This is one of those guys that looks like he's going to serve up a lot of exciting fights, and so I'm excited to see what he has here. I think Pulaev's a bit better than his last opponent, and so I'm going to take Gautier. But again, we'll see how it turns out. These are two guys who are not terribly far into their careers, so we are not completely sure who they are, and we got to see a few more matches before we have a solid hold on them. But yeah, I got Gautier.
I'm going Gautier as well. But you see time and time again with these prospects that the UFC has coming up. Yes, they can look great through a certain amount of matches, but then sometimes they hit this point where they're in too much over their heads. And so I think with Gautier, I think that will happen. I think he's a guy with a lot of power, a lot of athleticism, extreme amounts of power for his division. But he's also a guy where I worry about him technically, or his technical skills.
Yeah.
And so I think at a certain point he will get caught. I just don't think it's now, but it's definitely going to be a fun one to watch because it is a big step up in competition for him.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking for more body shots here, a little bit more technical boxing, and see a bit more of the clinch game maybe too, because, yeah, I want to root for this guy. We want to be excited. But yeah, I think he'll take it. And so our final fight on the prelims is Umar Nurmagomedov versus Davison Figueiredo. And yeah, this is the type of fight that I don't think you really see on the prelims in the previous era. I'm hoping this is a sign of things to come, that we get this many really high-level fights on each numbered event, because holy cow, Figueiredo and Umar, those guys could potentially be headlining an event. They're that good. So make sure to tune in earlier. Don't think that you just have to turn it on for the main card. Like, maybe that's been true in the past for some events. This one, definitely not. Umar and Davison, you need to tune in. Davison, I mean, what do you say? He's been around for forever. He is a total stud. He moved up weight classes for a bit. And yeah, I think that some of the injury history and his age are going to start finally catching up to him. But even if they weren't, I think Umar is the type of guy that, a level of talent that you rarely see. I don't think that old Davison would be able to take this. I don't think that new, slightly deteriorated Davison is going to be able to take this. I have Umar pretty easily in this one. I think they're a lot of the matches from, folks from Khabib's camp, people are super high on these guys. And there's always a moment in these fights where you have a bit of internal panic because you're like, oh, holy cow, maybe this guy's a minus 750 and he's on my parlay and he was a lock. And this is getting scary for a split second. And a lot of those guys from Dagestan can be, when they do go down unexpectedly, it is a big knockout. So Figueiredo's in it. He has power in those hands. I just think that Umar has passed the up-and-comer. He's not he's not a rookie anymore. He's had a lot of fights. He's had a lot of high-level fights now. And he's not going to get caught in the same way, I don't think, unless he's fighting, the champ or something. I just think that he's going to be able to walk away with this probably pretty easily. I think he gets a submission. And I think it's going to look easy, and it's going to force them to realize that we really need to let Nurmagomedov take another shot at this belt.
Yeah, I mean, having a potential title eliminator fight in the prelims is just madness.
Yeah.
But we're here for it. I'm a huge Umar Nurmagomedov fan, and so I'll be rooting for him. Figueiredo is a guy, though, that scares me a little bit. I mean, you mentioned the age, but that's been the case for like 4 years.
True.
And we're always waiting for Figueiredo to fall off that cliff.
Yeah.
And he's still shown up consistently. But at a certain point, it will start to show. Mm-hmm. And I think in some cases with some other guys at the top of this division, he can get by still. But with Umar, I think he's too quick. I think he's too technical on the ground. Mm-hmm. And there's going to be a lot of 50-50 moments on the ground. And I think Umar's going to kind of outshine him in those moments and get himself in those dominant positions on the ground.
Yeah, and something that's interesting, we'll see this in our very next fight on the main card, but something that I think is interesting is watching, people from different regions and how those fighters come into the UFC, what their persona is. And Davison has always been one of those guys that I really want to like. He's super fun, but he has highs and lows for me when the fight is over. He'll take the mic sometimes and I'll be like, man, this dude has the energy. That was a great fight. I want to root for him. And there's other times where he just kind of looks like an idiot. He makes dumb decisions. Some of the call-outs, he just sounds kind of stupid, overconfident in ways that I think are silly. Sometimes confidence is sick. Sometimes it comes off rough. And it depends on, a lot of aspects of how we see that fighter. But Figueiredo's a guy that I've kind of always wanted to root for. And I always end up finding myself right on the peak of being like, this is one of my guys. And then he just does something and he drops off a cliff for me internally where I'm like, no, Davidson's not one of my dudes. So just wanted to let you guys know this isn't just Nurmagomedov glaze. It's not Dagestan glaze. I know that, I personally like the ground guys more, the guys who can get a submission, who can control their opponents on the ground, control the fight. But I do enjoy Davison, and I do think he has a chance, puncher's chance. But I think the odds are probably about correct. So yeah, Umar pretty easily here. Hope it's a good title eliminator, and hope to, send us into the first main event on Paramount Plus. Excited and amped up. So yeah, next up, we're entering the final fights of this first Paramount event. We have Jean Silva versus Arnold Allen. I know you're a big Arnold Allen guy, so I don't know if you want to start us
Arnold
up.
Allen's a guy where not one specific thing he's going to be like the best at. Mm-hmm. But he's just so well-rounded, and he's just very good at essentially everything.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of power. His dad's a bodybuilder, so I'm sure from a young age he's been lifting weights, and it's paid off for him. He's technical as well. John Silva is a guy where you also love him or you hate him.
Yeah.
More so, probably people don't like him, but
we do at least.
he gets your attention on the mic, fighting out of the Fighting Nerds versus Arnold Allen. John Silva's a guy where he's got a lot of power, and I hate to say it, but he actually is really good.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm so excited to see like what gives in this fight, because yes, John Silva's really good, but so is Arnold Allen. And I think people aren't giving him enough credit. And so I think he's a plus 210 at the moment. And I'm going to take him for that upset win.
Yeah, I'm with you with Silva. I'm not the biggest fan of the world. He's another one of those Brazilian guys. I don't know what it is about Brazil that kind of creates these fighters who are super high on charisma. They're goofy. They're over the top. They're maybe, selling their personality too much, and it ends up backfiring on him. Silva, his confidence is earned when he gets out there and talks about, what he's going to do in a fight and how ridiculous he's going to make his opponent look. I don't think it's BS. He's earned the ability to talk that way, but I don't know, the way he's jumping up on the cage, doing the little barking, picking up a belt he hasn't won for some of that promo material and shedding tears as if, this is his moment. Buddy, you're not even there yet. You're not even about to fight for the belt. You're coming off of a loss. kind of a weird move for Paramount to get him on that promo photo shoot. But I don't know. I'm completely out on him. I don't like him as a fan. I'm not gonna follow him and root for him, but I am going to tune in for every one of his fights because he and Arnold Allen both are guys who they embody what MMA is. They are great at everything. They can go to the ground. They can go to stand up. They can move in the clinch. They can move for submissions. I think that they're super well-rounded, and I think this should be an interesting fight. I always want to think that Arnold Allen's a little longer than he is, but they're actually pretty close in height, and I think reach as well. It's not as far off as I expect whenever I look at the numbers. Silva is coming off that knockout loss, but he was looking pretty good in that fight and got surprised by that back elbow by Diego. So I think Silva's going to come in and he's going to get off some shots. He's going to scare Arnold with his power a little bit. And I think that
John Silva.
Yeah, Jean Silva is going to be able to take this fight. I'm not going to say easily, but convincingly. And yeah, Silva, I don't know. I'd love to see him. I'd love to see Arnold Allen go in there and just whoop him. I would like nothing less. But out of the Fighting Nerds camp, I think a lot of those guys are really talented. I think John Silva might be the cream of the crop. Mm-hmm. And so while Arnold Allen is good, Silva is just a monster. And yeah.
Silva, yeah, he's a guy that'll fight at his own pace no matter who he's fighting, mm-hmm. which I think gains my respect a little bit.
Yeah.
Because with other guys, it's just on how the fight's going, it's how they're going to fight. But with him, he's always cool, calm, composed. He's always deliberate. And it always feels like he's a step ahead.
Yeah.
He's cutting off the corners. He's dictating the fight, and it's in a position where he's going to be successful in it.
Yeah.
He has gotten caught, but he always looks so good, so powerful. But yeah, something about Arnold Allen, I just think he's so well-rounded. And maybe he gets more volume, whatever the case may be. Maybe he has a lot of power too, so I wouldn't throw that out the window.
That's true.
So I think he gets it done.
All right. Well, next up, we have Rose Namajunas versus Silva. Since we lost the Kayla Harrison fight, this is our only female fight on the card, which is interesting and might also show a little bit how the UFC feels about their women divisions right now, opening up Paramount without a lot of the female fights. But these two are both studs. They're both, real fighters. They deserve to be on a main event like this. Rose has had, a tougher last couple of years after her rise to fame and, taking that belt. She took a couple losses in a row and has been slowly clawing her way back. But if you look at the strength of her opponents, like the girls she's been fighting, while she's looked good, I don't think that the people she's been beating are people to watch out for in the division. They're folks that are decent, they're all right wins, but they're not really impressive. While Silva, she is on a pretty big win streak right now, and she's looked awesome in just about every fight. And I think if you take, their last couple fights and put them against each other, I think Silva has fought the more talented and better current fighters. So I would take Silva here. But I don't know, never count out an ex-champ.
Mm-hmm. Silva, she has a great kickboxing, but tremendous with her kicks. And so I think that's what will set her over the edge with Rose. And like you mentioned, these are two fighters in different points of their career. Maybe a few years ago, I might have taken Rose in this matchup, but Natalia Silva's in her prime. She's a great athlete, and I think she's going to take advantage of her kicks in this one and win by decision.
Yeah, I think so next up we have Derek Lewis versus Waldo Acosta. This is an interesting one because both of these guys have kind of entered, I don't know if I want to say a new stage of their career, but they've kind of changed their game, their physique over the last year. Waldo, he fought, I think, 5 different fights in 2025, which is rare for any fighter, let alone a fighter in the upper weight classes. So I think that, to me, speaks to his confidence and his training schedule, how he's constantly in shape. He's constantly ready to jump in against anybody. He's in every fight. He's really solid. But Derek Lewis, we've seen photos of him. He's looking a lot slimmer. He's looking like he's taking it a little bit more seriously than maybe he did a couple years back. He wants to still be in the top of this division. He knows that he has the power to knock out anybody. He has the most finishes. That's it in the heavyweight division. But yeah, I while Derek Lewis is looking better, he's looking cleaner, he's looking slimmer, and he still retains all that power. I think that 40 is 40, and unless you're one of those guys who has remained at the very top of your division consistently, I think that it's tougher to climb back up the ranks as a 40-year-old. I think that's a tougher ask than maintaining your position. And that comes down to a lot of the regimen, the mental stuff, and the injuries. If you're a guy that, while Derek hasn't really struggled with that, I think that it's gonna catch up to him at some point, being such a slugger. And I think Waldo is going to be able to take this one, although it should be a fun fight, and I would love to see a KO here from either fighter. If I was a bet man, I'd put my money on Waldo.
Yeah, Costa, I'm going to take him as well. He's just, at this point in their careers, an all-around better fighter. But it wouldn't shock me in the slightest if Derek Lewis gets that one punch off.
Yeah, totally.
And wins. I can see his interview now. This is a guy who, before his last fight, he picked up running. He's been running a lot, and he looks really good. But like Trevin mentioned, 40's 40, and I think Acosta is just a lot more athletic in this point of their careers. So I think Acosta either wins by decision or knockout, and then if Derek Lewis wins, it's only going to be by knockout.
Yeah.
But I really do like Acosta in all phases of this matchup. It's just I do worry about that one punch catching him, but I guess you can say that about any heavyweight division matchup, especially with Derek Lewis. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens.
Totally. Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up the post-fight antics with Derek Lewis, because he's become a favorite in our household. My wife tunes into a lot of these main events, and she loves Derek Lewis, especially after the taking the pants off event. Balls was hot, pissing on the outside the ring. Who you want next? My wife. All of these get quoted in my house a lot, more than you'd expect. And so all that coming from one fighter, I think that if I do accidentally start rooting for Waldo in front of her, she's going to get pissed at me. So I'm going to secretly, hopefully she doesn't watch this, I'm going to, in the room, be a Derek Lewis fan, because that's just, how my house is working right now. And secretly, I think internally I'm going to be rooting for Waldo, because I want fresh blood in this division. So yeah, I'm going to take Waldo as well. And that takes us to the second to last fight. This is a co-main. We have Sean O'Malley versus Song Yadong. Man, both of these guys are really exciting fighters. I think since Sean was that golden boy for the UFC for about, a couple of years there, 2 years, everybody thinks of him as still like a young stud. He had his rise in a very short, peak, and now he's kind of dropped off a little bit. He hasn't been able to take that belt back, and so people view him as a super young guy, but he's in his 30s. Meanwhile, Song Yadong has been around forever, it feels like. I feel like I've been watching him for such a long time. I think he came into the UFC late 2010s, around like 2017, 2016, or was it earlier?
I think a little after that.
A little after? Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, I feel like I've been watching him a long time. Team Alpha Male. Mm-hmm. And I always get I loved Uriah Faber when I was growing up. He was one of those dudes that as a young boy you look at, you're like, oh, he's so cool. And while he maybe wasn't the best fighter ever, I think that as a coach, he's passed that on to his fighters. And so when you watch Song Yadong walk into the ring, he just kind of glows with confidence. He glows with that kind of cool energy that comes from Team Alpha Male, and they're not the best team in the UFC by a country mile. I don't often root for these guys, but I do like watching them, and I do enjoy them at the very least. There's not a lot of them I hate, and Song Yadong is probably their, I don't know, best current fighter, I'd say. I can't
On the men's side, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, while I love Yadong and am rooting for his career, I think that Sean O'Malley has had a bit of a, you know, fire sparked in his gut after watching somebody take out the champ, somebody remove Marab from that spot. He has that personality. He plays it up a lot. He's a big streamer now. He's on camera all the time, just messing around, and he likes to play around and pretend he's the dude. But occasionally the mask cracks a little bit and you see who he is. And there are those moments where he goes, yeah, I couldn't get there. I can't figure it out. And he knows, I believe I heard him on stream say, and this is kind of my opportunity. I know I can beat a guy like Piotr Jan. And I struggle with Marab. So I need to get in there. I need to get up and get back to that championship fight as soon as I can. And so I think that he's going to be excited again. He's going to be ready to go. He's going to want to put on a real show here, sell himself against Yadong, try to go for a knockout. And I think that he's going to be able to do it. I think that Yadong gets caught a lot. He's technically really solid, but I think he just has moments where he makes dumb decisions. And O'Malley is a bit of a sniper. He's very smart. We're always messing around, shooting fadeaways in the ring. He looks like an idiot. He sells himself as an idiot, a clown who's a really cool dude. I think he's secretly kind of smart, knows what he's doing, has a good game plan, and that he's going to snipe Yadong. He's going to catch him at a point. I think he'll sleep him, and he's going to be making a big push here to get back in that championship ring.
Yeah, all the show aside, O'Malley is a tremendous fighter. I think once he came in, everyone was eyes were glued to him because of the show he puts on. But then he makes it to the top of the division, gets his belt. He loses it to Marab, but like you mentioned, this is now his chance to get that back. Because stylistically, he's probably the worst matchup for Marab. Is the worst matchup for him.
Totally.
So this just opens that opportunity for him. So in this fight, I think it's just going to come down to the fact of the reach. And so is O'Malley able to keep the distance, keep those sniping shots on him, or is Song Yadong able to kind of make it ugly, get inside, maybe wrestle him a little bit? O'Malley's wrestling isn't terrible, but
it's improved a lot too.
Song Yadong has tremendous wrestling, and so I think he finds a way to get it done. I think he kind of makes it ugly, and I think he just finds a way to get in the clinch. Maybe some other ways of winning rather than just flat out striking. And
no, that's interesting. You're taking Song. That's interesting because Yadong is one of those guys. There's certain archetypes in MMA, and he's one of those dudes that's just a marcher. He'll just walk right up on you. He'll eat some shots just to get right up in your business, get right in your grill, and he'll start pounding away. He'll work on the body. He'll work with the legs a little bit, and he's really going to be gunning for you, and he's not going to give you a breather. And I think Sean struggles with that occasionally. We haven't seen him fight a lot of guys with this build. He's typically the type of fighter who, when guys march up on him, he's good at circling out. He finds the space, and he is constantly escaping. But what does he do against a guy who's really good at keeping that distance close? If Yadong can keep it in the pocket, maybe get him in the clinch a bit more, I think he has a lot better chance in this fight. But O'Malley is very talented at slipping his way out. He knows what those lines are. He knows when he's trying to get cornered. And I think he slips out pretty well. So I still think I'm sticking with Sean, but you make a good point there. Yadong definitely is one of those guys that if he can make it fight dirty, he has all the chances to take it.
Yeah, I think if he wins, he's gonna come out in the post fight interview with beaten, battered face still.
Yeah.
So I think it won't be easy for him, but I think there is a road to victory for him.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. And then in the main event, we have Patty the Batty Pimblett versus hopefully Justin Gaethje. We're filming this in the middle of the week, so we're not totally sure if this fight is going to be on, but we'll basically call it how it is right now.
Yeah.
This is an interim lightweight title fight. So with Islam moving up to welterweight and getting that belt, we now have the lightweight up for grabs.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some controversy about who is going to get this fight. At the end of the day, they give it to Gaethje and Patty. Gaethje is a guy who's getting older in age, so for him, I think he's really thankful to be getting another shot at this.
Yeah.
Because it was looking a little grim for him after the past few matches, but he's still been finding a way to win. And same thing with Patty. He's been finding ways to win as well. Some have argued that he was kind of like fed his first few matches in UFC, kind of given like very favorable matchups.
Mm-hmm.
Takes out Michael Chandler, but at the end of the day, I still think he has a lot of talent. And in this matchup, I think at this point in their careers, I'm going to have to go with Patty just because I don't know what I can expect from Gaethje at this point anymore. And he's kind of a guy who's just going to brawl and march forward. And I think Patty's going to be a little more technical and outstrike him on the feet.
Yeah, this is a real interesting fight. I'm not sure if I'm rooting for this main event to stay the way it is or to get Arman. There's this, weight class has been interesting for quite a while. You talk about golden boys with Sean O'Malley and, some of these younger guys that they push. Patty, in my opinion, has definitely been one of those guys. You were talking about people who may be talking about him getting fed fights. I'm people. I think he's been fed these fights. I don't know. Patty is real. He's fun. He's exciting. I enjoy rooting for him. For all of the antics, for all the silliness, I still kind of like him, which is kind of rare. Sometimes if there's too much publicity, if there's too much talk, if there's too much extracurricular stuff, I can get soured on a guy in moments. And he hasn't done it to me yet. I still enjoy him despite everything. So I'm not like a Patty hater. I just think that the types of fights he got to get to the belt, it's a little ridiculous to me. Like, I don't think he should be here yet. I think that, honestly, this fight should have happened, but not for the belt. This could have been maybe an eliminator for the next guys up. But, that's not what we're looking at. This is the fight. This is the belt. And so we got to set that aside. I think that Patty is young, like you said. I think he's talented in all phases. I think he's got an underrated ground game. I think he's got a lot of submissions in his bag. And while Gaethje has been seen as a guy who's just going to throw and, maybe get knocked out, maybe wake back up after getting knocked out, get knocked out again, and then somehow stay in the fight. We've seen that happen from before. That's not really who he is now. He's still a stand and brawl dude, but I think getting slept by Max made him reevaluate. He stepped into that fight last second, and he said, sure, I'll do this for the USC. I'll take one for the team. And that opens up an interesting conversation. I think the behind the curtain stuff, this out of the ring stuff with the UFC, because the path to the belt is a lot more than just what fights you have and how you perform in the ring. There's stuff that's going on outside that really affects whether or not you get there, how you get there, and how your career plays out. And I think Gaethje is one of those guys who's had a very interesting career. He's always been near the top. He's fought a lot of amazing fighters, and he's beaten a lot of them. And so I think that this stuff going on right now with, the staph infection, I believe, on the neck, some guys just don't have the luck. And UFC came out and said that if that infection isn't healed, they're going to pull him. And while I'd like to believe that it's just health concerns, that it's just safety, I don't think that's the only reason behind it, because Gaethje also came out and said, hey, new Paramount deal, that's cool and all. Guess what didn't change? My pay. He was doing interviews and talked about what fighter pay is like, and he disclosed, he didn't say numbers And Dana has disputed and said, we offered him more money and he declined it. But the type of guy Dana is versus, Justin Gaethje, I'm taking Justin Gaethje's word on this one. I don't understand why a Justin Gaethje would be offered more money and be like, no, I'm good. Just out of spite, I guess, is what Dana's saying. Dana's saying we offered him and he just didn't respond because he was upset that it wasn't enough of a raise. I don't buy it. I don't think a lot of these fighters have great retirement funds set up for themselves. I think that if he was offered more, he would have taken it. So I believe Gaethje, and I think that he's probably upset the UFC a bit in Dana. And I could see them, looking at the staph infection and going, this is a great reason to pull Gaethje out. We didn't need to give him this fight, and they maybe felt like they were throwing him a bone and giving him a winnable fight against Paddy Pimblett. So I'll be interested to see if we're watching Gaethje versus Pimblett or Arman versus Pimblett. But yeah, back to the fight. Sorry for the aside. I just think all that, the extracurricular stuff with the UFC can be as interesting as the fights. But when they step inside the ring, I think that Paddy is going to game plan very well. I think he's going to take Gaethje down. And while, you pointed out earlier, Gaethje's got that wrestling tattoo, he hasn't leaned on it in a very, very long time. He's decent, he can work his way back up if he needs to. But Pimblett has great wrestling. He has great jiu-jitsu. And I think that Pimblett is probably going to finish it on the ground. I think that he's going to wear him down on the ground in the first couple rounds. They might brawl a little bit to start, but as soon as Paddy feels like he's got an opening, I think he's going to take him to the ground. I think he's going to control him there. And then I believe that he's just going to wear Gaethje down. Gaethje's going to get tired, and Paddy's going to find a submission. That's not to say that I think that Paddy is, the fighter that's going to hold this belt for very long. I think that if he was facing a guy like Arman, I'd have my odds completely swing in the opposite direction. I think that Arman would make him look a little silly, honestly. Yes. And that might be a more interesting fight to analyze and talk about, speaking of, out of the ring stuff and what Arman has had to go through to try to get an opportunity at the belt. So we'll see what ends up happening. I'll take Paddy here. But Paddy's chin is always out there. Sousers don't get knocked out and all that. But I don't think he's fought anybody who can throw like Justin Gaethje. And I think Gaethje's going to have opportunities to hit that chin. I think he's going to be able to catch him clean a few times. And then we'll really get to see if Paddy's the type of guy that has the chin he says he does. But I just don't see the fight being on the ground or being on the feet long enough to truly test that. And Paddy will get the win.
Yeah, like you mentioned, I'm subtly hoping that Arman makes this fight because I think both of us agree he's kind of miles ahead, both of these guys. So yeah. No matter who wins this one, I think they're going to be seeing Arman staring him down for the next title fight, and I don't like their odds for that. I'm hoping he gets rushed to this week with all things considered. I like Gaethje, but I'm just hoping Arman makes this championship match. But I guess we'll wait this week to find out. Yeah, and then go from there.
Yeah, I know you're a big Arman guy, right? Yep. I kind of want to spend just a split second talking about him, just in case this ends up being an Arman match. Like I said, we're recording this early in the week, so we don't know. We probably won't edit the Paddy Gaethje stuff out because that is how the card shook out. So if it is Arman, just scan through. But I think that Arman is easily the best fighter in the division. I think that he would take Ilya, honestly. I think that Ilya's, as advertised, an amazing fighter. I'm not trying to diminish what he has, but I just think Arman has reached another level. We saw him earlier in his career. He looked amazing, but he couldn't quite find the way to finish tight fights against really top-end talent. I think he's turned a corner, and he's a different fighter now. He's great on the feet. He may not have amazing power. He's not getting a ton of knockouts, but that wrestling is insane. I think he, you know, everybody talks about Hamzat in Islam. I don't think Arman is really that far behind him now. And so I think that if Arman somehow gets in here, it's going to be so easy for him. And I'm not sure if anybody's going to take the belt away from him anytime soon. And whoever, ends up winning, if Justin or Patty fight each other, if does end up happening, I think it's just, postponing the inevitable. I think Arman's going to step in there, and, we'll either see Arman get his first fight for the belt here, or we're just delaying him getting more title defenses, because I think he'll rack up quite a few before he lets that belt go away. I think Arman still has levels to go. I think that on the feet, he'll keep working on his kickboxing. I think he'll keep working on his windows with his striking. So yeah, whatever the fight ends up being, I think it's Arman's belt to win, whether it's this weekend or it's 6 months from now. But Patty's great. I'm excited to watch him fight. If he wins the belt, I'm happy for him. He's an amazing fighter. I just don't really understand why we're seeing this as the first fight to take that vacant belt. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I think it might be partially because we're playing to the fans here in the UFC right now. We want two big names, two big exciting fighters that talk a big game to get in the ring and put on a show for the first Paramount event. They want the board members at Paramount to be wowed and be like, yeah, this is going to continue to do numbers. I think they're a little concerned that Arman won't be able to do it, which brings me to one last talking point. For Arman, I think he's been kind of going on a press tour lately. He's been going on all the podcasts. He's been trying to change his image a little bit and seem like a little bit more of a reasonable guy, stating like he understands why the UFC did what it did a little bit. These are the things that the UFC asked him to do. So I just think that Arman is entering championship mentality, outside the ring, inside the ring, everywhere already, and he hasn't even got a shot. So I'm a little disappointed we're delaying the inevitable here, but either way, should be a good fight. Should be an amazing card. I don't know if you have any closing thoughts, but
yeah, to piggyback off that, I think UFC, you like to think of them as one of these in the same organizational tier with like MLB, NBA, NFL, but I think you can't hide from the fact that they kind of just do whatever they want at the end of the day.
It's an entertainment product.
Yeah. And so with that being said, I think Arman, I remember when he first debuted in UFC against Islam Makhachev, and he's the first guy, maybe the only guy since Volkanovski who's made him look human, and he was a 23-year-old on his first fight, which is incredible, and he's only gotten better since. His losses were close decisions where if the judges are another discussion.
Yeah.
But there's a world where the judges pick him as a winner, and he's undefeated since that Islam fight. He's that talented. Tremendous wrestling, tremendous kickboxing, boxing. He basically has it all. Not only would I rank him at the top of this division, I'd probably rank him maybe top 5 pound for pound on the whole roster. I think he's that good.
I'm with you.
And long term, like you were mentioning, it brings up a discussion. Does Islam stay at 170? I know he changed his body a lot. Maybe a year or two down the road, we see these guys still at the top of the division, or on the other side as well with Ilya, maybe he comes up to fight Arman. So I think it's just fun to have these discussions with these divisions because it's been kind of stagnant and stale for a while, and now I think we kind of have some new blood in there.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just really exciting all around.
Yeah, no, it should be a great event. A lot to look forward to for this year in the UFC. So make sure to tune in. We should be covering all of the numbered events. We might even cover some of the fight nights, or we'll see. Just keep an eye out. We should be covering a bit of UFC. We'll cover the Super Bowl as well, and we might dip our toes into other sports. But hey, you're just gonna have to subscribe, keep your eye out, and look for us in the future. Hope you enjoyed. And we were Press Coverage. I'm Trevin.
And I'm Cam.
Have a good
That
one.
is press coverage.
Yeah.